The air inside the departure terminal buzzed with the usual chaos of last-minute announcements, echoing footsteps, and the rustle of carry-ons being dragged across the polished floors. Somewhere in that crowd stood Amara Hayes, a young black woman of striking poise. She was only 23, but her life story already carried the weight of a lifetime. Dressed in an elegant but simple cream-colored blouse, her natural curls neatly tied back, Amara's calm presence seemed to contrast sharply against the rush of hurried travelers around her. To a stranger, she looked like any ordinary young woman catching a flight home. What few knew was that Amara was the only daughter of Raymond Hayes, one of the most influential black billionaires in America, a man whose empire stretched across industries, from technology to philanthropy. Yet Amara had chosen a path away from the spotlight, preferring humility over the extravagance her last name could afford. But life has a way of putting even the humblest hearts to the test. That test began the moment Amara stepped into the aircraft cabin, clutching her boarding pass tightly. Seat 2A, business class, near the window, her father's small gift after a grueling week of charity work abroad. The seat was supposed to be hers, a place where she could finally breathe after days of exhaustion. Yet when she reached her row, her breath caught in disbelief. A middle-aged white man, with sharp eyes and an expensive suit, was already sitting there. His leather briefcase rested where her backpack should have gone, and his demeanor made it clear he wasn't planning to move. Amara hesitated, softly explaining that the seat was hers. But the man barely glanced at her before waving her off with a dismissive hand, as though she were invisible. "They'll find you another seat," he muttered, slipping on his headphones and leaning back with an entitled smirk. The sting of humiliation burned deep inside Amara's chest. Passengers around them looked, some whispering, others pretending not to notice. She stood frozen, caught between asserting herself and swallowing the insult. And that was when her silence became its own wound, because the world had always tried to tell women like her, women of color, to stay silent when confronted with arrogance. Before I take you further into this unforgettable story of justice, humanity, and an ending you'll never see coming, pause for a moment. If stories of kindness, courage, and unexpected twists touch your heart, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to our channel Kindness Corner so you never miss a powerful story like this again. And don't forget to drop a comment below about how this story makes you feel. We love reading your thoughts. Back inside the cabin, the flight attendant approached, her polite smile stiffened by discomfort. She asked the man to check his boarding pass. He scoffed, declaring that he'd upgraded himself, because he deserved it more than some kid who probably didn't even pay for the seat. Amara's face flushed. The words cut deeper than he realized, touching old wounds of being judged for her skin, her youth, her gender, anything but her worth. The attendant tried again, but the man's arrogance only grew. He raised his voice, complaining about political correctness, and muttering things that made several passengers shift uneasily in their seats. Amara felt her chest tighten, her throat ache, but she remained steady, refusing to let him see her break. The situation grew tense enough that the captain was informed. By now, murmurs filled the cabin, passengers whispering in disbelief at the audacity unfolding before them. Some filmed quietly on their phones, capturing the man's cruel smirk and Amara's quiet strength. When the captain finally arrived, he spoke firmly, explaining that this was a violation of airline policy. The man's arrogance only deepened, he crossed his arms, refusing to budge. That was when the captain said something no one expected, "Sir, if you cannot comply, this flight will not take off." The cabin froze. Moments later, ground crew was called, and the unthinkable happened. The entire flight was grounded because one man had chosen pride over decency. As minutes stretched into hours, passengers grew frustrated, but slowly, whispers shifted into words of support for Amara. Strangers approached her, some placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, others voicing their outrage at the injustice she had endured. What had begun as a moment of humiliation turned into a collective awakening, as people realized they had a choice, to stay silent, or to stand by what was right. The man was eventually escorted off the plane, his shouts echoing down the jet bridge. And when Amara finally sat in her rightful seat, she didn't feel victorious, she felt heavy, as though the whole weight of the world's prejudice had sat on her shoulders for that long, suffocating moment. Tears welled in her eyes, not because of the seat, but because she knew how many others lived their entire lives being dismissed, overlooked, or diminished simply for who they were. That flight eventually took off, but not before every passenger had seen, firsthand, what entitlement and injustice looked like, and what quiet strength could do in the face of it. Amara's story didn't end on that plane. A video of the incident went viral within hours, sparking national conversations about respect, dignity, and the invisible battles people face every day. Yet what struck millions most was not the man's arrogance, it was Amara's grace. She had endured humiliation with her head held high, and that dignity became a mirror for the world to examine itself. For many, she became a symbol of strength not because of her last name, but because of her courage to endure cruelty without losing her humanity. And here lies the heart of this story: injustice may sit in your seat, try to silence your voice, or attempt to strip you of dignity. But character, quiet, unshakable character, cannot be stolen. Amara taught the world that day that sometimes the greatest power lies not in fighting back loudly, but in standing tall when the world expects you to bow. So now, I ask you, if Amara's courage and this story touched your heart, please let us know in the comments below. We love hearing how these true human moments impact you. And remember to share this story with someone who needs a reminder that kindness, dignity, and justice will always find their way through, no matter how dark the moment may feel.